Hey, everybody, welcome to another edition, a live edition of the Bolt City podcast. Thank you very much. I'm Dave Palet. That's Josh Palet and Mario Herron talking Charger football with you. Of course, like we do at least 2 to 3 times a week for about 45 minutes to an hour at a time, depending on how much time we have and how interesting the questions are. All right, or the comments, I should say. So, look, if you're joining us live right now, we can tell you right now, we appreciate that thumbs up button. Mario, you want to give it to us? Show us what it looks like. Right
Boom.
there, pow. That one, and then of course we have fireworks if we hit a certain number, which is great too. So got a lot of things to offer. At the same time, subscribe. We want all that stuff to help us out, keep the show going. But look, here we are. We're talking Charger football, and it is April 1st as we do this show, a live show. At the same time, so many people have told me already today, guys, this is the month. This is when the draft is here. And this is such an excitement factor. When you talk to football fans, people say all the time that the draft is more exciting than week one in the NFL. Do you feel the same way? What is more exciting for you, the day of the NFL draft, day one, or week one of the NFL season?
That's crazy. Week one of the NFL season is better than the NFL draft. I love the NFL draft. I will say the NFL draft is better than almost every other sport's whole season. But week one of the NFL season should be it's true. I'll take the NFL draft over the WNBA season. But the week one of the NFL season should be a national holiday. It's so great. So I'm not going to say it's better than week one. I love week one.
Yeah,
Mario,
I'm kind of with you. Yeah, dude, week one. Are you kidding me? Like, NFL draft's fun and all, but it's just a tease. It's not even the app. Like, it's a spinach and artichoke dip. You know what I'm saying? Like, give me the full meal. I want to eat my steak. Like, come on now. Like, the NFL draft's fun. It's great. But, dude, week one of the NFL is when, the truth gets told. I like that so much better. The NFL draft's fun and all, but there's also, it's the ultimate. I'm just going to sell myself on this player, even though you just, found out who he was, an hour ago.
Dude, I disagree with both of you guys. I'm going the NFL draft is more exciting than week one of the NFL season. I'll tell you why. That player you get in day one is a guy that could be with you for the next 10 to 15 years. The guy maybe you depend on to win Super Bowls. I mean, if you have the first overall pick in the draft and let's say you're getting Caleb Williams, you're going, this is our franchise. This is the greatest quarterback in franchise history is about to join now. And that's why today is more important than week one of the NFL season. Now for the Chargers, look, this is the Jim Harbaugh era. We want to see, what are we expecting? Are we expecting a guy that's going to protect his quarterback? Or are we looking for a guy who's going to draft the best available player at number 5? Like, we want to know the mindset of what to expect for years to come. Guys, for me, it's the draft. It is the draft. If you give me a choice, day one of the draft or week one of the season to watch, I'm going the draft because all 32 teams are playing at the exact same time.
Dude, the draft is only better if your team sucks because you have a top pick. If you have a good team, you're like, we're going to kick ass in
We
week
suck.
one. So,
yeah, but
I know we suck. You're not supposed to say that on the show, but right now we do.
Oh, sorry. But
Yeah,
if you're the Steelers, are you saying if you're the Steelers, you go, hey, big damn deal. We never pick in the top 5.
Yeah, exactly. If you're the Steelers who pick at the end all the time, you're like, week one is better for us. But for us, I guess with the 5th pick, the draft might be better. And one thing I don't understand a lot of things in life, but one thing I really don't understand is why people hate us so much for not wanting an offensive lineman. I thought more people would be on our side saying, I want the flashy new toy. I want the receiver. I want the tight end. But a lot of people that watch the show want the offensive lineman, and it shocks me.
Yeah, that's something I wasn't really getting. I thought we'd be kind of simpatico with a lot of people that maybe it's just I also try to, if I see someone that doesn't agree with me, I just kind of ignore the comment, move on, give them a thumbs up. I just kind of move on. So hands up. Sorry, guys. That's what I do in my line of thinking. Yeah, it's a crazy thing. And I get the alignment. I get the battle's won in the trenches, but same time, man, that shiny toy receiver is going to be a lot better for us, I think, in the long run. I could be wrong. Been wrong before, but hey, what are you going to do? I'm not going to lie, Dave. I'm going to really sit and stew on this draft day better than week one for a long time. I think that's just a really crazy. You're choosing hypotheticals over actual football. That's a little crazy to me.
I think you're watching what everyone in your division's doing and what you're doing. I think not only dictates, the future for the next 5 to 10 years, but also you're just week one. I mean, there's going to be a whole different change in 7 days, but that being said, I'm curious to know what people think on the side in the comments here. here's an interesting thing. As you said, offensive lineman. There are a lot of people that want O-line, and you build a football team and a franchise through the O-line, and you protect the quarterback when you have one. And the Chargers do have one. But for us, and I think a lot of people, we look at that excitement factor. Like, we know we need wide receivers. I mean, in a desperate way. We lost our 2 starting wide receivers just out the door, and you're left with one guy who really is a 3 or a 4 and another guy who's unproven, and you have nothing there to throw the ball to. So I kind of look at these skilled positions as, hey, look, the whole deal is, I'm here for a good time, not a long time, right? The guys that want the offensive linemen, the defensive linemen want to build inside out. Those are the guys with the pretty good saving accounts, right? The 401ks, the guys that know exactly when they're going to retire. Those are those guys. The guys that fly by the seat of the pants are the fun guys, right? We're living for today. We're having a good time. We're going skill position every year in the draft, baby. That's the way we're going. It is a lot more fun. Let's be honest here. It's a lot more fun to go for a skilled guy, the shiny new toy, every single year in the first round. But at the same time, that might be the reason why the 3 of us aren't general managers.
Yeah, exactly. We're definitely not general managers for a reason. But I think a big myth for a lot of fans out there is thinking if you get an offensive lineman, it's a safer pick. Well, hold on a second. How could you say it's a safer pick? I don't think Zion Johnson has lived up to the potential of a first-round pick. I don't think anybody on this show would say that. So you can't necessarily say an offensive lineman is going to be a surefire starter for the next 10 years. I would almost say I have more faith in Malik Neighbors and Marvin Harrison Jr. than anybody else in the draft. I mean, their skills are so transferable from college to the NFL. And you could say that for wide receiver for everyone, right? Wide receiver translates to the NFL better than any position. And that includes offensive lineman for me. So I think if you go with a guy like Malik Neighbors or Marvin Harrison Jr., it's easier to see them excelling in the NFL because you saw them do it in college against big-time competition. Isn't that something we always say on this show? You want guys that are going to play against future NFL players. Well, Malik Neighbors went against Kool-Aid McKinstry and Terry and Arnold, 2 guys that are going to be first-round picks, maybe a second-round pick, and he dominated. So why would you not want to get guys like that? Marvin Harrison Jr. went up against the national champs in Michigan and dominated. So I think you can say those guys' skills transfer better than any other position.
I think too, when it comes to O-linemen as well, like, you mentioned it's not always the safer pick. O-linemen are destined to get hurt, man. They're destined to get injured because of the damage and the hits and everything that they take, Dave. They're the front lines for what's coming for the quarterback, the running back, for the receiver. And just to say, I think that safer option is always O-lineman, and that's always the better play. I get the argument it's a better play in terms of team building, because if you don't have it on line, it doesn't matter how good your quarterback is, he's not going to look good. Doesn't matter how good your running back is, he's not going to look good. But at the same time, there's football players that are just better all-around football players, and the better all-around football players are at other positions, I think, in this draft, and those players are the players of need for us right now. Yeah, do we need a lineman? Yes. But if I'm sitting there as a GM and I go, we need a line, we need a receiver, but the best possible receiver is available and the best alignment's available. But I know as an all-around football player, the receivers are just 10 times better than the alignment. I'm going to go with the receivers at the end of the day. And by the way, haven't we found out that there's it's pretty good value down the board with alignment? So I think we've figured that out recently, Dave.
Look, it's funny. You guys brought up a couple different things. One is O-linemen, they do last. I mean, look, there are injuries, but O-linemen, you see guys all the time that last 12, 13, 14 years in this league. But like the running back position, the average running back plays a year and a half and then he's gone. I think, honestly, Josh, the running back position is a position that really makes the transition the easiest going from college to the pros. Running back and then cornerback, I would say. Wide receiver, I'm not saying that there aren't guys who are rookies that step in as wide receivers and are fantastic. We see that all the time. But we also see a huge gap in guys that are just a bust that you didn't see coming, that were great in college. And either all of a sudden they get paid and they don't work as hard, or they just don't have the skills, or they're afraid. Who knows? They have the alligator arms. I can't tell you, what happens with certain wide receivers, but it seems like a lot of wide receivers, it's a coin flip when you look back and say, what happened to that guy?
Yeah, it's true. There is a ton of wide receivers that don't pan out. I mean, every position, there's a lot of guys that don't pan out. I would agree with you. Running back is the number one position that's most similar to college. Jahmyr Gibbs is a great example, a guy at Alabama that was good, but but I think he was much better with the Lions. And you don't see that very often where guys are just better in the NFL than they were in college. But you can see that with the running back position. I am curious if the Chargers do trade down and get a lineman because they think the receiver group is so deep. I mean, there's tons of guys that people are talking about in the second or third round that will be day one starters. I think I'm going to mispronounce his name, but Leggett for South Carolina is a great player. You got Brendan Rice for USC, who's a really good player. Those are round 2 or 3 picks right there for guys that could start for the Chargers if they want to go that direction. I think it's really depending on how deep the Chargers they see the receiver group. If they think it's a really deep group, they could get a lineman and then trade down and get some more picks and get some receivers or a tight end. But I'm curious, Mario, if people value Malik Neighbors and Marvin Harrison Jr. in the Chargers building like we do, they might say, yeah, they're good, but there's tons of good receivers we can get in round 2 or 3.
Yeah, and that's certainly a thing. And I think we're coming off also of last year we saw Puka Nacua, right? Like that's still fresh in a lot of people's minds. Where was he drafted? Later rounds. The 5th round. And that's still fresh on people's minds. People are going to look back and go, well, if they got that talent in the 5th round and last year's class was this loaded receiver class as well, then there's probably something like that too here, which there probably is. But do you have the scouting of the Rams? Like, do you have that scouting? Does Harbaugh, does Roman, does Joe have this history of finding incredibly talented receivers later in the rounds? Because I don't really recall the Ravens doing that. They got Zay Flowers in the 1st round. That was a pretty good talent, but he also kind of fell to you. Just saying. So I get that argument. It's easier said than done. Look, if they get an alignment, they get an alignment, and don't get me wrong, there's a very talented alignment on the board, Dave. If they trade back, we are such a Bama show, and I know we are such a Bama show, and I'm about to make us sound more Bama, but I would really want J.C. Latham than anything from these O-line guys. Like, just that guy's size, it's just like, oh my God, you're a head coach's dream. You know, like that's his size, his physicality, his footwork, his foot speed. I'd rather take that than Joe Alt, who has to do a new position, and some of these other guys that seem a little smaller and maybe had to be moved to guard instead of tackle.
Yeah, no. So here's the deal. You're hearing more and more rumors that the Harbaugh way, right, is going offensive line. That basically you're going to build that strength through the lines, and then you're going to figure it out as far as. But the most important thing is to protect Justin Herbert, right? And all that makes sense. I mean, we all know the reason Justin Herbert makes all that money. There's a reason for that. So I was looking through, guys, the different teams and saying how much pressure is on Justin Herbert just inside his own division. Out of the 3 teams inside the Chargers division, you guys have any idea between the Chiefs, Raiders, and Broncos, which team had the most sacks this year?
Raiders.
Yeah, Raiders.
It was the Chiefs. Chiefs had 57. Okay. Chris Jones, Karlaftis had 10.5 each. You look at the Raiders had 46 sacks. Max Crosby had 14.5. Christian Wilkins wasn't on the team. He had 9, who obviously just signed with the Raiders. Behind Max Crosby is only like the number was like tied for 4, and the Broncos, they had 42 sacks. Jonathan Cooper had 8.5 sacks. So the idea is, hey, how do we protect Justin Herbert, especially when you look at the team that you're chasing in the Chiefs? I think Jim Harbaugh looks at this Charger roster, I think just like we do, and say, even though the Chargers finished obviously in a horrible position in the division last year, we believe the Chargers are the second best team in this division. So what's the best way to protect them? Mario just threw a guy out there, and of course, Josh and I, we watch a lot of Alabama football, so we know J.C. Latham really well. But he's a guy that's, again, he's just 21 years old. He's young, he's big, he plays, as a young, strong player that I think as you coach him up will be even that much better of an NFL player. But there's some really good ones out here. And according to Pro Football Focus, they have Joe Alt number 1, but Joe Alt doesn't fit what the Chargers are trying to do, being a left tackle. So you're hearing rumors that if the Chargers pass on Joe Alt, he ends up with Tennessee, I think with the 8th overall pick, and or 7th pick, whatever the hell Tennessee has. But at the same time, there are a ton of offensive linemen out here, and I know people are leaving messages on the side. And guys, I agree with what a lot of people are saying. There are offensive linemen all throughout this draft that you can grab, but there's only a certain amount of skilled players that are available that we really want. Right? We want either Harrison Jr., we want Neighbors, we want Brock Bowers. Like they're the only certain guys that you can only get in the first round at those positions that you say, we got our guy. Everyone else, to me, after the first round at those positions are, man, I hope this guy's as good as we think he is. Everyone else is, we know what we're getting when we get those other three. Am I right on that?
Yeah, you're right. There's a different tier, right, for these guys.
Yes.
There's tier 1, and then there's kind of like everybody else. CBS Sports did a rankings on these position groups, right? And they said there is 7 receivers with first round grades, and there's 5 offensive tackles with first round grades. You are going to get a tremendous player in the second round. And if the Chargers wanted to trade down for the number 11 and 23 pick, you could grab 2 offensive linemen, a guard or a center, and a tackle, and then you can get a really good receiver in round 2. And you had a hell of a draft. So I will taper down, what I was going to do before and punch my screen if they drafted a tackle, because they could get a really good player in the second round, or if they traded down and got that other pick, you got a really good player. So I think the Chargers have so many different options in this draft. And I think the draft in some ways dictates what the Chargers are going to do with that 5th pick. Are they going to draft somebody? Are they going to trade down? And that's going to determine what a lot of teams do with their pick. The Chargers are very interesting because they're not going to draft a quarterback. And a lot of things go through the Chargers and what they decide to do here. Is there anybody, Mario, that you would look at and you'd say, I'm just not cool with it? If they went with that guy or they made this decision to trade down to a certain number, I'm going to be really upset.
So the trade down thing too, I said this before, and I'll say it again. I think it still really also depends on what the Cardinals do. Because if Vikings call the Cardinals and they get a deal done too before the Chargers get to, I think the Chargers definitely stay at 5. I think they stay there 110%. I think it's a lot based on what the Cardinals do. Cardinals trade, boom. Chargers don't. Cardinals don't trade. Chargers do. That being said, a guy I don't want. I know I've said his name before, but I'm so skeptical of Joe Alt playing a different spot. I'm very, very skeptical of that. It's very hard for a rookie to do. That's extremely, extremely hard. I don't want to be put in that spot. And like Dave, you just mentioned, like the pass rushers that the Chargers are going to face, these aren't slouches. These aren't, nothing to play with. You're going to get Max Crosby 2 times a year. And by the way, if you don't realize, like Max Crosby, not only does he dominate you physically, mentally, he's your worst nightmare. Watch the Hard Knocks. After every play, what does he do? He touches the quarterback. He just wants you to know he's there. Like mentally, he will destroy you. Then you have on the other side of the Chiefs, you just have Chris Jones, who, by the way, is one of the biggest reasons why the Chiefs beat the Bills this year in the playoffs. Like, these defenses are nothing to mess with, man. And I think just having that spot, yes, I know Joe Olt's number 1 lineman. I get all that. It makes sense to me. He comes from an O-line factory that has Notre Dame. I get that. That makes sense to me. But that spot, that transition, makes me a little bit nervous. The other guys, I don't mind. Latham's fine. The guy from Penn State's fine. Troy from Washington had a fantastic pro day that, bumped him a lot up the board for some people. The guy from Oregon State, I don't know how to pronounce his name. Talis, I think is how you say his first name. Scouts said he's the ass kicker that every NFL team needs. The thing that scares me a little bit is that, Dave, they possibly want him to play guard in the NFL. I'm all set. We need a tackle, not a guard. Get us a freaking tackle. JC, pucker up, baby. Come on to LA.
For me, Josh, the name that would stand out that I'd be like, oh no, is Alt, because you made the point. Is look here, he's a left tackle. This is what he's been his entire life, and it's tough to make somebody play opposite of what they normally are. The only reason I could see someone getting a guy like Alt and switching them up is if you drafted Michael Penix at the same time and you had a left-handed quarterback and you're saying, look, we need to protect his blind side and we're going to work with you to fix this. We think you're the best tackle out there. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. The Chargers already have a left tackle. They don't need to worry about that position. There's so many other holes they need to take care of, including the center position, which is funny because I think a lot of teams in the NFL, you don't hear all the talk about how important the center is. And we mentioned, a couple months ago, they're bringing Nick Hardwick to join the coaching staff, who of course was a center and a very good one. But the Chargers, when they lost their center, it was a completely different team. A completely different team that things fell apart for what the Chargers have. The Chargers do need that center, and they need that guy that's going to be that guy anchoring the offensive line for the next 10 years. So as much as I used to always believe that drafting a center in the first round was ridiculous, and I still kind of think it is, you got to get a center sometime early in this draft because it is important for this franchise. And I think there's a reason Nick Hardwick is here. The Chargers know they're going to grab a center at some point early on to have someone for Nick Hardwick to coach up to that style of football.
Let me ask you for your preference. If you could get one of two guys, which one would you get? A center that's going to be there for 10 years and is perennial all-pro, or a right tackle that's going to be there for 10 years as a perennial all-pro? What do you guys think?
You go first, Dave.
All right. People are going to lose their mind right now. And I think if somebody said this to me a few years ago, I would have said it's a no-brainer. It's a right tackle. I think you can find a right tackle through like free agency and trades. But what we saw in the Chargers the last year, and anyone who watched Charger football who didn't sit there and give up and say, I'm done with this team every Sunday until 2024, you realize this team and this franchise completely sputtered out of control without a center. It is so important to have that guy in the middle. And I know people who don't follow football as religiously as the three of us do, and most of the people that listen and watch this show, they understand how important the center is. It's just not a position on the offensive line that gets the attention that I think most people understand what it deserves. You always hear about the pulling guards and the left tackles that make all this money. But man, this team stunk last year when they lost their center. It just completely fell apart.
And the year before that, they stunk too, right? Like they really struggled the year before that when Lindsey went out. And I don't think the Chargers are the only example of this at all. You're going to see the Philadelphia Eagles take a giant step back without Jason Kelce next year, man. I mean, that tush push that they do, ain't going to work, player. Ain't going to work that well this next year. It doesn't work for the other teams because they didn't have a center like Jason Kelce. So if you don't think that position is of value, look at Corey Lindsey, look at Jason Kelce when he's not with Philly this coming year. And just, I think people always forget Josh, and you play the quarterback position. That center is the point guard on that O-line. It's the quarterback of the O-line. Everything gets done through him. Communication gets done through him. Where people go, what people block, the type of scheme that comes about all goes to the center. So if the center doesn't get it done, your line's kind of screwed.
Yeah, I 100% agree. The Jason Kelce comparisons are great. I think the Chargers' biggest issue has been center. I mean, we can point to a bunch of different reasons on the offense why the Chargers have struggled. But when Corey Linsley wasn't playing, they went from a team that can make the playoffs to one of the worst teams in the NFL, period. I mean, that he was just the biggest difference in the world. I think the Chargers actually have the same issue on defense with the middle linebacker position, right? The guy that calls out the defense and points to where everybody should go. They haven't had that guy. And the guy that they have had in Kenneth Murray hasn't played up to the standard of what we thought he's going to be, the first round pick that he was. So I think the Chargers have the same issue on offense that they have on defense. They don't have that leader that's directing people where to go. The comparison I would make would be on defense. If you got a big time middle linebacker, right, that's going to be there for 10 years, perennial all pro, or an edge rusher that's going to be a perennial all pro, for 10 years, I would actually want the middle linebacker. And I know the defensive end, the guy that gets the sacks is all the flash, but just because you have a really good defensive end doesn't mean you're going to be a great team. I mean, look at Max Crosby and the Raiders. He's awesome. The Raiders aren't awesome. I'd much rather have a guy like Fred Warner who's going to anchor the defense and be the leader and make all the plays in the middle of the field. If the Chargers could address, center eventually in the draft, middle linebacker, two things that they desperately need, I think the team's going to change completely, make a complete 180 and be a totally different team, Dave.
I agree. I agree. I mean, it's interesting you bring up the middle linebacker. Let's be honest. The smartest guy on the Chargers defense is switch over to that side of the ball. The smartest guy on the Charger defense is Derwin James. If you go to a Charger game and you watch it in person, if you aren't able to figure it out on television because the camera angles, Derwin James is the smartest guy on that defense. I always thought when Derwin James first started that eventually this guy would make a great linebacker. Now, people go, man, his body type, he's not going to last, too many injuries, everything that's going to happen. If you look at NFL defensive players today, they're built so much different than the NFL defensive players of even 20 years ago. I mean, look at the cornerbacks now. How many cornerbacks are at least 6 feet tall? It used to be cornerbacks were 5'7", 5'8", extremely fast. Now you're looking at cornerbacks that are 6 feet, 6'1", with crazy long arms. It has changed. The body types have changed. If you saw Fred Warner, he's not as big of a person as you'd think. I mean, just height and weight. Derwin James, if his body would hold up, and I know it's a big gamble, I think down the line, if not this year, in the next couple of years, I think he'd be a hell of a linebacker.
I think also too, when we talk about linebacker in that center position, we're also talking about, leaders in the locker room, right? Like the center and middle linebacker, they're leaders on the field, but they're also big voices in the locker room. Look back at some of the greatest teams we've ever seen in the NFL. And a lot of that foundation was, they had a quarterback that was a great leader. They had a linebacker that was a great leader. They had a center that's a great leader. We even remember when Derwin James was saying how he kind of struggled. I think this was 2 years ago. Yeah, he kind of struggled in the game because he was calling the defensive plays. It was like a different adjustment for him. And like it was hard for him to do that while also staying on top of himself and his assignments. And then went to Drew Tranquil. Now he's a loser in Kansas City. And, we hate him now. But you kind of saw that like it was hard for Derwin James to kind of handle that role at the same time. And yeah, I kind of agree with you, Dave. Like maybe later on in his career when some mobility's gone and the kind of strength and kind of has to get up there, maybe his old man strength kicks in. Maybe him put on a little bit of weight and moving to that linebacker spot could be pretty good for him. But I think when you look at the hole at linebacker and the hole at center that the Chargers need to fill, it's just much as filling that position as filling that leadership role that the Chargers need in that locker room. And in this new Harbaugh era, they need leadership that's going to buy in. And you said, Josh, DNs are great, but that doesn't come from the DN position. It comes from the guy in the center of the huddle calling those plays.
The center is everything. I mean, sometimes I like comparing football to other sports. Sometimes I think it's dumb, but I think it's fair to make a comparison to baseball with the catcher for the Orioles, right? Adley Rutschman. That team sucks. They get a catcher that leads the way. Now that team's good. Now they're a good team. Look at the Kansas City Chiefs, right? Back-to-back Super Bowl champs. Who do they have at center? Creed Humphrey, all-pro center for the last 2 seasons, second-round pick out of Oklahoma. They bring in 2 tackles to fill in, and they still win the Super Bowl. I mean, I'd much rather have the center that's going to anchor the offensive line. The difference that Nick Hardwick made when he was a Charger was everything. Between him and Lorenzo Neal and LT and the quarterback play, it was offense. It was awesome up the middle what the Chargers had. I think you need to build up the middle strong and then go from there. And linebacker, it's a big issue for the Chargers. It's been addressed on the show many times, but I really don't see people talk about it as much as I thought they would with the holes that they've had. Kenneth Murray has not been good. He's been inconsistent. The Chargers need to give some run to Dan Henley to see what he can do out there. I would like to see the Chargers address this in free agency or the draft soon, man, because this is such a problem. If the offense is good, let's say we get a really big center or right tackle and we're scoring points in the whole thing, who are we going to stop on defense? I mean, we really don't have much on the defensive side of the ball that makes you smile.
No, unfortunately, no. I mean, again, there are tons of holes on this team. I think free agency wise, it would have been great if we were able to clear that cap space, meaning you figured out what you're going to do with Allen and Mike Williams sooner, so you could have basically jumped in before everybody went on the shopping spree. I mean, maybe a lot of the guys the Chargers would have wanted would have been available if they would have made the moves quicker. I think that honestly, the Keenan Allen move shocked the Chargers. I think they weren't prepared for it, which is unusual to say, right? You expect Jim Harbaugh to be prepared. You expect a new general manager to be prepared. I think they were very surprised that Keenan Allen said, no, we aren't restructuring and we aren't taking less money and figure out a way for me to get out of here if you aren't going to pay my full salary. And it put him in really behind the 8 ball. I mean, going into the season, that was a huge, I think, mistake by this team. They'll never admit they made a mistake. But that was a huge mistake. They did not see that coming. There's no way they went into this offseason thinking they're getting rid of both their starting wide receivers.
Yeah, I actually agree with you. I think that was a little hiccup in the road. We're like, all right, we're losing that. Like, that's actually happening right now. That wasn't, that didn't go to plan. That wasn't supposed to happen. And I think in doing that, it's an adjustment that they're going to have to make. And also, this is, an organization right now that they've said over and over again, they do not want to be in the hole that they were in 2 months ago. Like, they do not want to be in that hole again. And I think because of that, they're a little money shy right now. And they're a little like signing shy. I think they're going all the cheap route. They're not going to Whole Foods right now. They're going to Aldi. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're not going to go big shopping right now in terms of anything like that. So I think that shocked them a little bit, but I think it's also right now they're establishing everything and they're trying to build off everything, Josh. Like they're laying the concrete right now. And that's why when it comes to the 2024 season, I'm not going to expect a prime Harbaugh team. I'm going to expect a team that has some weird losses, has some huge wins, but competes in every game. That's what I'm just going to expect. I'm going to expect a lot of just competition and competing. I think everything right here is just foundation and getting the right guys in.
Well, when your college coach takes over a new program, he doesn't get all of the players he wants in his first year, right? He has to deal with the players that the previous coach had. For Jim Harbaugh coming to the Chargers, he has to deal with some guys that he probably doesn't want on the team, right? It's going to take him a few years to get his guys in the building. That's why I'm so interested to see what they do in this draft. Who are the Jim Harbaugh, Joe Ortiz guys? Like, I'm very curious to who they see as their type of players. Brian Thomas Jr., Mario, is a very interesting name. He was the number 2 wide receiver at LSU. He had an awesome year. He had 17 touchdowns. People are talking about him going in the top 10. I don't think he's going to be a top 10 pick, but I think he's definitely going to go somewhere in the top 20. This reminds me of the DK Metcalf, AJ Brown, Ole Miss team, right? You had 2 big-time receivers that were coming out at the same time. Do you think the Chargers would go there with Brian Thomas Jr. if they traded down? Have you watched any Brian Thomas Jr.? That's a name that people have been floating around a lot with the Chargers.
Yes, just because every time I felt like he was in every highlight because he scored so many touchdowns. And I'd watch the LSU. I'm like, dude, if the ball's in the end zone, it's freaking Brian Thomas catching it. I think at one point, yes, he was at pace of 1 in every 4 catches were touchdowns. It's like, dude, this guy's got the best job in college football. I think he's a great trade down option. I think a receiver that could fall in the second round. I think he's an extremely high level talent that Dave, where you mentioned like the AJ Brown, DK Metcalf thing. The guy, the number 1 receiver, was in such an insane talent that he kind of got overshadowed and he fell a little bit. There's also a guy, I believe NFL.com, yes, they have him as a 6.44 prospect score for Brian Thomas, which is a good start within 2 years. That always wages and goes every other way. There's UNC receiver too, by the way, Dave, that I like to flirt with on the Chargers. Just got suspended, didn't get suspended. NCAA was being dumb and wouldn't let him freaking play, which was stupid. But he's a guy I could see the Chargers taking a little flyer on. I'd be fine with that.
All right, here we go. I'm going to throw something at you guys right now that you, Josh, and me are going to love. Okay, Mario, we're going to love this right here.
Okay.
People are going to lose their minds. Like diehard football fans are going to lose their minds. If you're a high school coach or you played college football, you're going to freak out right now with what I'm going to say. But if this happened on draft day, Chargers draft Neighbors at number 5. They trade up, and then they also grab Thomas. You grab 2 wide receivers right off the bat, and you have your 2 wide receivers who are young. You have them on the rookie contracts, and you give huge weapons to Justin Herbert right off the bat. And you still have Quentin Johnson, whatever you think he's going to be. But right off the bat, you got these young guys. You got 3 wide receivers. 1's in the second year, 2 are rookies. And we all know that the 2 guys that you just drafted can play. Are you in?
I think I like it more than Mario does.
Dude, I'm ecstatic. And I hate LSU, but I am ecstatic. I'm like, hell yeah. Gambling Jim.
People have made the comparison to Chase and Jefferson.
That's exactly why I said it. That's exactly why I said it. Those 2 guys. LSU is a wide receiver factory. You get them both at the same time.
The Chase and Jefferson, they just didn't have a dumb Brian Kelly running the team, you know? Sorry, I took a shot there. I wouldn't hate that just because I think when Keenan Allen first left, I was going through like a panic mode of, dude, just draft the receiver every freaking round. It's so bad. So like, Josh, I don't hate it that much because it's like, it's such a big need in today's NFL. It's like, dude, it's like if you don't have a quarterback, just take one every round. Someone's got to hit.
Yeah, I like the idea. Yeah, and that's what the
Angels
did with their pitchers. Yeah.
Yeah. Look, it would be
Here's
fun.
something underrated. Hold on. Here's something underrated that people don't ever talk about for some reason. Getting guys that played college together or grew up together that are friends. It makes such a difference when you're on the same team with somebody that you know well. You can ask them because you're always afraid to look dumb, right? When you're in school, you're like, I want to ask the question, but I feel like everybody's going to look at me like I'm an idiot. If you have a friend there that's playing the same position as you from your college, you guys can just bounce everything off of each other and learn from one another. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, I'm telling you, there's certain picks in the draft that happen all the time, right? Every fan base has this. Even when Patrick Mahomes was drafted and they showed the clips of the Chiefs fans booing and losing their mind, and Mahomes is maybe the greatest quarterback of all time. There's certain picks where you go, what the hell? And you walk out of the house because you're so angry, and you just walk down the street kicking invisible cups, right? You're just angry. But I'm telling you, if the Chargers pull that move and grab those 2 wide receivers from LSU, we'd be pumping our chest. We'd be super excited walking down the street going, hell yeah, man, this is the way we're rolling. We're rolling, and everyone else better be prepared because I don't think you have the cornerbacks to shut our guys down. And we have a quarterback to get those guys the ball, and they're on rookie contracts. Hell yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you. That's just an absolutely okay. Like, I'll take it. I'll buy into that really quickly. I'll rewatch everything on LSU. Like, I'll be an LSU fan. I'll get a tattoo. I don't care.
I'm not.
But Josh, that was a really good point though about like how important it is of having someone like from hometown college like at the next level. Like that is so much. Like I was just even thinking like when I got my first job here at Odyssey. Obviously it's 2 different spectrums, but like you get what I'm saying, where it's your first kind of big boy job. And I had like 2 people that I knew from college that worked here. And it's like, all right, if I have a dumb question that I'm like, God, I really don't want to ask in this meeting because I'm gonna look like the biggest idiot, like a good little side slack to them. Like, all right, I don't feel that stupid. Like that stuff's like huge. It goes a long freaking way. I think especially in the NFL, that can be pretty intimidating. Like I'm all for it. And they probably can bond. Like, dude, isn't this crazy that we play for a coach that's not an idiot like Brian Kelly? And it's like, dude, this is the craziest thing of all time. This guy actually knows what he's doing and cares about his players. Like, I bet that'd be a crazy feeling.
I think bringing a buddy in, man. Well, I think bringing a friend into a major city like Los Angeles also helps. I'm sorry, you go from Baton Rouge to LA, man. It is shocking. It's shocking.
Yeah, you should. I mean, you should do it. I think it's a great idea, and I haven't thought about that yet. We have a few questions that we want to get to. Start with Dave because I know the answer to this comes from Eddie Ramirez. He actually asked a football question for once. He says, "How did you react to the Herbert pick in 2020?"
Look, I think most people who've known me for a while know I did not react well. I goofed on it. I didn't react well. It's one of the biggest mistakes of my career, and I would say it couldn't be a better mistake. I didn't have faith in Herbert. I didn't think that he was the quarterback that I think he can be. And look, he has a losing record right now, but he's better than his record. You know the old saying, "You are what your record says you are." That I don't think that's the case with Justin Herbert. I think honestly, Justin Herbert has been saddled with some really bad coaches. This is a chance to show us what Justin Herbert really is. I think you're going to see the best of him. At the time when he came out of Oregon, man, I thought he relied on his legs too much. You hardly saw games where he had multiple touchdown games. When in college, everybody has multiple touchdown passing games, and he didn't. And so I was concerned that he was basically all legs and no arm. And sure enough, he's shown that he's more arm than legs. I think he's an outstanding player.
Yeah, I had a similar reaction to Dave. You guys know, obviously, behind me or this way, Alabama fan, obviously. So when Tua was drafted by the Dolphins, I was pissed. I was like, that's the guy I wanted. Alabama's had a bunch of good quarterbacks with him and Hurts and Mac Jones and Bryce Young. I think Tua was the best one out of all of them. So I definitely wanted Tua to be the quarterback for the Chargers. But I was completely wrong too. And Justin Herbert's better than I thought he was going to be. So my reaction wasn't the best, but I'm happy that I was wrong.
I remember watching the Rose Bowl game when Herbert won Rose Bowl MVP. And I remember he was on stage and all the analyst guys were like just gassing up Herbert. Like, what a great game and all that stuff. I remember sitting there going, I was not that impressed. Like, I was like, I mean, he won the game and like he ran a lot, but like I wasn't that impressed. Won me money that day. Yeah. So shout out to him for that one. But I remember watching that game when he got drafted. I was like, I mean, I hate to say it, but I was like ecstatic. Like I was like, oh my God, like they got him. Like, I was just like, okay, like that's fine. Like, we'll see what happens. And that'd be really, really good.
Yeah, remember, he wasn't even the starting quarterback on week 1 of the NFL season that year. Yeah, he found out because the Chargers medical staff, punctured Tyrod Taylor's ribs. His lungs couldn't breathe. All of a sudden, Justin Herbert, hey, you're playing. Really, as good as he was, during training camp, and I think they're on Hard Knocks that year. They're talking about this guy's pretty good. Number 10's pretty good. He wasn't that guy. Like, he's won the job. We've seen that in the past. Do you guys remember when you'll remember this, Mario, because you're in the Midwest, when Matt Flynn had that crazy game for the Packers, like the last game of the season, he scored like 5 or 6 touchdown passes, and the Seahawks gave him like $10-15 million a year. And dude, he couldn't even win the job week 1. It went to Russell Wilson. And then they traded Matt Flynn to the Raiders because they're like, oh man, we paid a lot of money for one guy we thought was better than he was, and he wasn't, you know? I mean, we've seen that before. But we didn't see Justin Herbert have a Russell Wilson type training camp where you go all of a sudden, he's just the guy. I mean, all he had to do was beat out Tyrod Taylor. He couldn't even do that.
Yeah, God had to step in on the Tyrod Taylor situation and make him the quarterback. That was crazy. All right, Mario, I got a comment from Rex. I'm curious what you have to say here. He says, the problem is there are a limited number of teams trying to trade up. Minnesota's the obvious team, and if they move up to 3 or 4, there isn't a trade for the Chargers. What do you think about that?
No, I agree with it. I agree with that. Like, I think the Vikings is kind of the wild card team right now, and it's just of who answers the call between us and the Cardinals. Who answers and who gets a deal done. If it's the Cardinals, then I think we stay put at 5, and if it's not us, I mean, if it's not the Cardinals, I think it's us. I don't know if Minnesota is like the only team necessarily that's like gonna trade up. Like, I think there's gonna be others, but like us trading with the Raiders, obviously probably not gonna happen. But I gotta also watch out. Like, what if the Giants want to move up 1? I gotta watch out for that, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
Like, what if New Orleans wants to get a little desperate and go, hey, let's shake some things up? Seattle, like, what if they want to change some things up? Like, they're on a little leadership over there. So I do think Minnesota's the obvious, but like, Dave, I wouldn't be surprised if some people want to spice up the party a little bit.
There are 3 teams to me that you can look. Well, you count Minnesota. Minnesota obviously is the one everyone's talking about. The Giants, you're absolutely right, Mario, because if you're a team that's picking 4 or 5 ahead of the Giants, dude, you hold that clock all the way to the last second before you walk up there because you want the Giants to panic. You want the Giants to think someone's trading for a quarterback. Look, Brown is not it, right? Did I just get that name right? Quarterback.
Daniel Jones.
I just want Daniel Jones. What did I say Brown for? I think Dave Brown was a former quarterback. I don't know why I just had a stroke right here on the show. But Daniel Jones is not it. Paid him a lot of money, and he is not it. So the Giants, I have them possibly moving up. I have the Raiders moving up, and I have the Broncos moving up. Those teams all need a quarterback. They need their franchise quarterback.
When you say the Raiders move up, who are they moving up with?
Who are they making that trade with?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying? I think you can make that trade.
Well, aren't they going to the teams ahead of the Chargers going to draft a quarterback and they want Jaden Daniels? So how could they possibly trade up?
How do you know it's Jaden Daniels? How do you know it's not one of these other guys?
Because of Antonio Pierce, the whole conversation with Antonio Pierce, unless they're blowing smoke, you think the Raiders want somebody else?
Let me tell you, everybody plays poker in the draft. If Antonio Pierce really is flipping over all his cards and he's telling the truth,
I think he is.
He's not the right. He might be, which shows he's not the right guy. Like, nobody does that. I mean, I'm so crazy. Watch this. I'm going to flip all my cards over. Like, who does that in this league? Nobody does that in this league. Even Bill Belichick won all the time. He had no idea what he was going to do. You can't flip your cards over. Antonio Pierce screaming Jaden Daniels, that's fine. I think he's a great player too. But to sit there and say, man, I'm going to beat the hell out of Tom Telesco in the parking lot if he doesn't get me Jaden Daniels, what's he doing? You just got the job. Like a year ago at this time, what were you doing? Better get 2 years ago at this time what you're doing. I tell you what you're doing. You're getting fired at Arizona State for ruining the entire program and putting Herm Edwards on the street and standing in the free cheese line every freaking Friday. That's what you did. You completely butchered the whole Arizona State program, Antonio Pierce. You were the guy that busted everything up over there. You only got the job because the players loved you. What have you done? So if he's really threatening his new general manager of saying, get me Jaden Daniels or else, and sitting there doing this move, what? Seriously. I mean, talk is cheap, man, when you don't get results. Antonio Pierce is not putting that organization in a great situation if that's truly the case. If he is telling the truth, he is not putting the organization in a good situation. It'd be the most Raider thing of all time. That's what the Raiders do. Just step in it all day long.
I don't see the Raiders trading up. I just don't
think
need
a quarterback.
They desperately need a quarterback, but Jaden Daniels,
Michael Penix at 13.
Dude, I think Michael Penix could be the one quarterback that falls. And I think Michael Penix is good. I like Michael Penix, but everybody's saying Jaden Daniels is number 2. Some people have Drake May up there. To me, the guy that's all smoke is JJ McCarthy. He's the one that people are playing poker with and say, you should get JJ McCarthy. You know, I think Minnesota might be dumb enough to actually do it. But JJ McCarthy to me is the one guy people are playing poker with, Mario.
Yeah, I think he's the poker player. I think he's the guy that's going to fall a little bit. I wouldn't be surprised if May fell either. I think people also forget, like, the later you go, like, Bo Nix is still around there. Like, would someone take a shot at Bo Nix? He's an experienced player. You know, maybe people would want to do that.
I like Bo Nix, to be honest with you. I'm a Bo Nix.
Yeah.
I can't believe it. He's an Auburn guy, but I'm a Bo Nix fan. Guy played more college football games than anybody. He's like those Duke point guards. I'm like, he was there forever, right? I mean, he played a lot of college football.
Dude, I think he's older than me.
Yeah,
I actually think I'm pretty sure. Yeah. So,
Stetson Bennett's like, man, you guys been around a long time. Yeah.
Stetson Bennett's like, did you guys actually get a degree there? I think the other rumor thing too is the Patriots are like a little fluid with 3. Yeah. And like the Raiders too, though. But like, I mean, they have their bridge guy. If they don't want to take a quarterback at all, and they just want to run this with Minshew, I mean, he could be their bridge guy for a year, and they can take a QB in next year's draft. If they really like someone next year, and he can just bridge them. But I hate that strategy. If I'm being honest, guys, the bridge QB, I hate that. Yeah, I think it's a dumb strategy.
All right. This one comes from AK Mario. It says, I have a question, please. If the Jets call and ask for QJ and a 3rd round pick this year for pick number 10, would you do it? I would like an answer, please. I think he's saying if you would trade Quentin Johnson for a 3rd round pick.
Yeah. Yeah. Tomorrow. Yeah.
Now.
Yeah, in my sleep. Yeah.
Yeah. I just traded Keenan Allen for a 4th round pick. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, if they want a 3rd, yeah, I'd be like, all right, yeah.
Yeah.
Honest to God, what would you actually trade Quentin? What would be like the limit? Like, would you trade him for a 5th round pick right now? You're not going to give up on him that soon, would you?
No, I'd go 3rd. 3rd would be mine.
3rd would be the limit.
Yeah. I'd also think it's crazy, Dave and Josh, if like someone called and said 3rd. I'd be like, all right, yeah. Guys, get this done as soon as possible before they watch film. Like, I would be like, we gotta move quick.
Dude, if it was today, 100% you'd go, this is April Fool's, and just hang up the phone, right? You just go, April Fool's joke. You know, those damn Panthers making jokes. Boom, hang up the phone.
Yeah. All right. There's a guy that does that, by the way. It's Chris Ballard and a friend that he has where every draft day he calls him and he messes with him. And he's like,
is that true?
We'll take the deal. Swear to God, there's a video of it, of Ballard like waiting on a call, and he answers it really quickly. And the guy like gets him and he just throws the phone down. It's really funny. It's on YouTube. It's pretty funny.
LS says, I want Joe Alt at the 5th pick. April Fools. Love this show as always. Best Chargers pod ever. Thank you, man. Appreciate that. Super nice. Brian Stowe says, hope we trade back and get JC Latham and Tavondre Sweat. I think we'll solve all of our problems in the trenches. If we were to double up on the offensive line, man, you got to hit. You can't do that and not hit. I mean, nobody can guarantee you're going to hit on the picks, but you have to hit if you're going to double up, Mario. I would not be happy about it. If you do one lineman, that would be my limit. But if you double up with your first 2 picks, I don't know, man. I'd be iffy on that. If
they double up with the first 2 picks, Dave, we're going to go to NFL Films. We're going to watch football in 1974, and we're going to say that's the Los Angeles Chargers in 2024.
Dude, that'd be it. Look, someone is it Ray? Is it Ray or Roy? I can't see. Asked if any chance they trade Herbert. They aren't trading Herbert. Herbert's not getting traded.
I think Roy is a fan of another team trying to cause some problems in the comments.
Okay.
Yeah.
Respect. Funny. Just be funny, Roy. That's what I ask.
All right, Mario. This one comes from Ivan Tiogan. He says, what up, fam? How was your Easter?
Oh, it's pretty good. Pretty good. Yeah. Fam.
Mario, I saw Easter pictures of your family. I didn't see you in them. Were you with your family?
Yeah, I didn't make it to church. I had to work, so I couldn't make it to church. So, sorry, heroes, but I wasn't there to see it. So, I missed that one. But hey, I was with the fam. Sisters do anytime. So the Herron family's growing. So in about 3 years, I make this joke all the time, but you'll be able to walk down the street in Indianapolis and go Herron, and someone will turn around. So that's what it is. How is that the Palet household?
Everything was good, man. I ate too many goddamn jelly beans. It didn't feel good, but that was about it. My niece kept giving me those jelly beans and asking me to guess what flavor this one is. And I was like, all right, she's a little kid. I'm going to eat the jelly beans, but I don't eat that much sugar. But oh, man, it made me sick as a dog. That was it. It was a good time.
Yeah, it was good. It was a good time.
Italian food, Mario.
Yeah, you can't beat Italian food. I have a question I want to float out there, Mario, to end the show. I don't know if it's an April Fool's joke, but I've seen it a bunch of times on the timeline. DJ Burns, people that don't know, he's the guy from NC State, the big dude, number 30, that's crushing right now. People are rumoring he should play in the NFL. He would get some looks if he wanted to play tackle. I believe he's 6'9". He obviously has great footwork, Mario. If the Chargers were to draft DJ Burns, a guy that's never played football, in the later rounds, would you be for it?
Like, I think I'd be like, so was this the worst draft ever? Like, that's what I don't know. I'd be like, what are we doing, guys? Like, why draft him? Like that. It's like every time in baseball when they go the whatever pick they drafted Kyler Murray. I'm like, did no one tell him? Did no one tell him to go in the NFL? Like, I don't know. That's my opinion on those. Like, that's just I was like, all right. He's funny though.
Dude, Josh, I'd love to see him at defensive end, not as offensive lineman. Hey, by the way, I love watching this kid play. I'm not an NC State fan, but if you been watching March Madness at all, this guy's the smartest guy on the floor. Doesn't get rattled, always makes the right pass, man, big body. I love that dude. I don't know how he's that big and runs 5 miles a day. Crazy.
Did you guys see the Rich Eisen thing, Josh?
No.
You guys didn't see that? Did you see that, Dave?
No.
Dude, Rich Eisen asked him, like, how did you get so big? Swear
That's
to God.
what he asked him?
Yeah, it was along those lines. But yeah.
Was he like, food?
He was just like, what? Like, he was like, what are you, like, what?
Dude, that's like Larry King when he asked DJ Khaled, how did he gain all the weight? That was like the first question he asked him. How did he gain all the weight? Well, how do you think he gained all the weight?
Yeah. Or running.
Yeah. Another one. You hear him say it all the time in every song. Another one. Talking Hostess Cupcakes. Another one. He gave you the answer in every song.
Yeah, another one. The answer to the question, dude, if they went 6th or 7th round pick for DJ Burns, I'd be cool with it because why not? I mean, how often does the 6th or 7th round pick actually make an impact on the team?
Okay, round. I think it's a 6th or 7th pick. Yeah, round pick.
No,
yeah.
Round 6 or 7. I would draft him just to take a chance because a lot of the times that guy doesn't make the team. I mean, how many Brock Purdy and Tom Brady's out there? They're actually making a huge impact in the round 6 or 7. I think it's a good idea to draft him because you could obviously play him at offensive tackle because he's huge, or because he has good footwork. You could probably put him on the defensive line. You have 2 options.
Was he a Tennessee guy, Josh? Brandon Hannon on here saying he at Tennessee was skinny. Is that who he's talking about?
Dude, I don't know. So many guys.
I'll be honest with you. I never knew who this guy was, man, until the tournament. Straight up. I don't want a lot of college basketball this year outside of North Carolina.
Look it up right now, man.
Yeah.
He did play for Tennessee. He's played for this 3rd team, actually.
Huh.
Jeez.
Yeah. Winthrop
the
and then
transfer
NC
portal.
State.
Way too much going on, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fun to watch.
It's like the NFL. It's like, oh, you're from Carolina to Pittsburgh. It's like, Jesus, dude.
Hey, by the way, on the next show, we have former Charger first-round pick Burt Grissman's joining us. So we plan on being back on Wednesday, if I'm correct. Is that right, guys?
Yep.
Wednesday?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
People
Wednesday,
are upset that we don't stick to a time on the same day. So you have an answer for that, Dave?
Yeah, it's called rain. Okay, it's been raining in Southern California. God dang it! I told you I'm a high school baseball coach, man. Sometimes we got to make up games. We got to get these games in. It's me, 100%. I told you guys, it's me. Okay, so for these few months that I'm coaching high school baseball, we got to get these games in. So that's the way it goes. It's not these two guys. Mario and Josh have been fantastic working around my schedule, but it's been tough between the end of February through the middle of May. So apologize. Damn it! I don't tell you.
Can we give people
Follow
a
us on
time?
Twitter.
Can we give them a time for Wednesday?
Let's go. Yeah, you guys pick 12 or 1 Pacific time. I can do either one.
1 works better for me.
Okay, 1 o'clock Pacific time. All right, that's what we're aiming for on Wednesday. Follow us on Twitter. The easiest way to figure it out, follow us on Twitter. We let you know when we're going on. It's very simple. Okay. Hey, again, thanks everyone though for listening, watching the show. Appreciate the comments on the side. Very curious. We do a lot of things at you. Anything that sounded completely crazy, I kind of want to know. The wide receiver thing, I think that'd be one of those things that would shock the NFL world. But at the same time, if you're a Charger fan, you're going, hell yeah. You're excited about what's happening. So if you listen to us to the Bolt City podcast through the Odyssey app, that is awesome. If you watch live through YouTube, great. But also if you're watching the show and it's not live on YouTube, please leave your comments. We do get to all of those. Don't forget to put the like button and subscribe button. Those are important to us. Otherwise, we're going to be back in 2 days. Brooke Grossman's going to join us. We're going to talk about the NFL draft with him, what it was like for him being drafted #1 overall, and about the days of playing with, Junior Seau and the guys that were sitting there trying to put a roster together that eventually ended up in the Super Bowl. So for Mario Herron, Josh Palet, I'm Dave Palet. We'll see you in a couple days.